and a warm welcome to State of Business on our television. I'm Heshain Ali and let's have a look at the headlines first. Private hospitals allowed to conduct PCR tests to reach the 1,000 tests per day target. We have a long way to go. This virus will be with us for a long time, WHO warns. News in detail. Concerning the coronavirus cases in the country, the Health Ministry announced that it has approved the private hospitals to conduct the PCR test in order to reach the 1,000 PCR tests per day target. Meanwhile, 5 more persons have been tested positive for COVID-19, bringing the total number of coronavirus cases in the country to 335 as of 5 p.m. today. A special discussion headed by the Health and Indigenous Medicine Minister Pavitra Vanniyarachchi was held at the National Operations Centre for Prevention of COVID-19 outbreak today. Thus, during the meeting, the Ministry of Health has decided to seek assistance from private hospitals in the process of carrying out PCR testing in the country. The Health Ministry noted that it intends to increase the number of PCR tests conducted per day to over 1,000 tests from the current 800. Representatives from private hospitals such as Asiri Hospitals, Navaloka Hospital, Durdans Hospital and Lanka Hospitals participated at the meeting, and they had mentioned that one private hospital could test 100 samples per day and submit reports. Meanwhile, Health Ministry added that 4 new coronavirus cases reported for the day are residents from the Bandaranaike Mawatha in Colombo 12. In the meantime, 2 more COVID-19 patients have recovered and were discharged today, making the total recoveries to 107. Subsequently, Deputy Inspector General Ajit Rohana stated that Director General of Health Services Dr. Anil Jalsinghe has empowered the Acting Inspector General of Police C.D. Vikramaratne to arrest those who are violating quarantine regulations during non-curfew hours. DIG Ajit Rohana asked the public transportation sectors, especially bus drivers and conductors, not to carry more than 50% of passengers in their public vehicles. DIG Rohana asked the heads of organizations and working places to check whether the health protocols are properly met at their respective offices and organizations. Meanwhile, Ajit Rohana stated that 36,115 curfew violators are arrested so far, while nearly 10,000 vehicles are taken to custody. Army Commander Lieutenant General Shavendra Silva, addressing the media at the National Operations Centre for Prevention of COVID-19 outbreaks, said that today they were capable to bring back another batch of students who were stranded in India. The batch included 102 students and they were sent for mandatory quarantine at the Punani Quarantine Centre. The Army Commander also said measures are being taken to bring other Sri Lankans in other countries, commencing from SAARC countries. He further added that 20 patients were identified yesterday and 13 of them were from Beruwala, and they were identified during the quarantine process at the Kandakadu and Punani quarantine centres. The Chief of the National Operations Centre also added that 2,744 persons are still being quarantined by the Triforces at 26 centres. He also added that 16 individuals who underwent the 14-day quarantine period at the Punani Centre left for their homes after the PCR test proved they are negative with the virus. Meanwhile, this is how the Sri Lanka Air Force entertained the citizens who are residing at the Metro Housing Complex in Slave Islands. This musical concert was conducted yesterday by the officers of the Sri Lanka Air Force under the patronage of the Commander of the Sri Lanka Air Force, Air Marshal Sumangala Dias. Co-Cabinet spokesman Minister Dr. Bandula Gunawardena today announced that the inbound tour operators will be relieved from value-added tax effective from April 1st this year. Addressing the weekly Cabinet press briefing, Co-Cabinet spokesman Minister Gunawardena put forward many other Cabinet decisions taken in view of supporting diverse sectors affected by the coronavirus pandemic.
මේ සංචාරක ක්ෂේත්‍රයේ විශාල කාර්යභාරයක් ඉෂ්ට කරන දේශීය සංචාරක නියෝජිතයන්ට 2020 අප්‍රේල් 1 වෙනිදා සිට ක්‍රියාත්මක වන පරිදි එකතු කළ අගය මත බද්දෙන් නිදහස් කරලා තිබෙනවා. ජමල් රාජපක්ෂ සමාජ්‍යතුමා කැබිනට් පත්‍රිකාවක් ඉදිරිපත් කළා. සුළුවා මධ්‍ය පරිමාණ සහල්මෝල් හිමියන් වෙත කඩිනම් ණයසාන් ලබා දීම සඳහා සුළුවා මධ්‍ය පරිමාණ හාල්මෝල් හිමියන් වෙත ණයසාන් ලබා දීමට කැබිනට් අනුමැතිය ලබා ගත්තා. ඊළඟට අතිගරු ජනාධිපතිතුමා අපනයන ඉලක්ක කරගත් සමාගම් මගින් සෞඛ්‍ය ආරක්ෂක නිෂ්පාදන සැපීම ආධාර ලබා දීම ධෛර්යමත් කිරීම සඳහා විශේෂ කැබිනට් පත්‍රිකාවක් ඉදිරිපත් කළා.
Speaking further, Minister Dr. Bandula Gunawardena added that the government has decided to impose a certified price for some main crops in the Yala season. The decision is taken to provide a relief to the local producers and farmers. Minister also added that the seeds to cultivate these 14 crops will be provided freely to the farmers. Thus, these are the certified prices of the mentioned crops. The first meeting of the Presidential Task Force in charge of the economic revival and poverty eradication took place today evening. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa yesterday appointed the Presidential Task Force in charge of economic revival and poverty eradication in order to recuperate the affected economy by the coronavirus. Accordingly, the task force is responsible for reviving the economy and eradication of poverty while paying special attention to the challenges posed and opportunities emerged in Sri Lanka in the wake of COVID-19 outbreak. Based on the vision of the Saubhagya Dakma policy statement, the task force should steer the relevant institutes to create a production economy through the formulation of a unique economic structure based on novel initiatives. It has also been tasked with the responsibility of taking measures to distribute products in liaising with all the institutes while paying attention to the activities undertaken by the health and education task forces to maintain normalcy in the civilian life. The task force is required to inform the President of all instances where any public official, ministry, state department, state corporation or any other similar institute which delays or fails to perform duties and responsibilities assigned by it. Special representative of the President Basil Rajapaksa will chair the task force, while additional secretaries to the office of the Prime Minister Anton Pereira and D.S. Jayavira will function as co-secretaries. Stay tuned for more news right after this commercial break. Welcome back after the break. Government has already commenced a systematic process to bring Sri Lankans who went abroad for various purposes, said by Minister Prasanna Ranatunga. Meanwhile, Minister Dr. Bandula Gunawardena also assured that Higher Education Ministry will also make a plan to register all Sri Lankan students in other countries. Cabinet spokesman and Higher Education Minister Dr. Bandula Gunawardena, addressing the media this morning at the Government Information Department, said that the ministry will make available a website soon to register by all Sri Lankan students worldwide. Minister Gunawardena said that the government has only about the details of students who went abroad via the University Grants Commission, and thousands of Sri Lankan students are studying for various courses at worldwide universities, education centers. Enabling the government to have right details as well as to facilitate them whenever they want, an online portal will be made available to enter their details. Minister Gunawardena also said that bringing back such students to Sri Lanka will be done in a systematic order after the government received all the details. Meanwhile, Minister of Industrial Export, Investment Promotion and Civil Aviation, Prasanna Ranatunga, said that Sri Lankans who went abroad for employment opportunities must register at the Sri Lankan embassies in the relevant countries via an online system to be considered to bring them back to Sri Lanka. Minister Ranatunga, speaking to the media today, said then the relevant embassies will contact the Foreign Ministry in Sri Lanka and the ministry will forward details to the Presidential Task Force, which is already functioning in tackling the coronavirus. Minister Ranatunga also said that those who registered will be allowed to arrive in Sri Lanka, facilitated by the government. He also said that the National Korea Sri Lanka Airlines will not prioritizing the profit factor in this mission, but the ones who had already bought return tickets will be asked to use those in chartered flights deployed by the government. Headline inflation as measured by the year-on-year change in the National Consumer Price Index decreased to 7% in March 2020 from 8.1% in February 2020. Central Bank of Sri Lanka announced that this was driven by monthly decrease of prices of a number of items in the food category. Accordingly, Central Bank, quoting data from the Department of Census and Statistics, said that food inflation declined to 14.1% in March 2020 from 16.3% in February 2020. While the food inflation was decreased by 2.2%, non-food inflation also recorded a decrease of 1.8% in March this year. The change in the NCPI measured on an annual average basis increased to 4.9% in March 2020 from 4.5% in February 2020. Monthly change of NCPI recorded at minus 1.3% in March 2020 due to declines observed in prices of items in the food category, driven by the seasonal supply of food crops and timely intervention of the government to reduce prices of certain food items amid COVID-19 outbreak. Accordingly, within the food category, prices of vegetables, red onions, rice and dal recorded decreases in March 2020. However, within the non-food category, prices of the items in alcoholic beverages and tobacco and health payments to medical tests recorded increases. Continuing its decreased trend for the fifth consecutive month, the core inflation decreased further to 3.2% in March 2020 from 3.4% in February 2020. Meanwhile, annual average core inflation decreased to 5.2% in March 2020 from 5.5% in February 2020. World Health Organization warns that the coronavirus crisis will not end anytime soon, since many countries are still in the early stages of the fight, and some countries that were affected early in the pandemic are now experiencing a resurgence in cases. WHO Director General Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus made this warning yesterday addressing the daily press briefing on coronavirus direct from WHO headquarters in Switzerland.
Globally, almost 2.5 million cases of COVID-19 have now been reported to WHO, and more than 160,000 deaths. We see different trends in different regions, and even within regions. Most of the epidemics in Western Europe appear to be stable or declining. Although numbers are low, we see worrying upward trends in Africa, Central and South America, and Eastern Europe. Most countries are still in the early stages of their epidemics, and some that were affected early in the pandemic are now starting to see a resurgence in cases. Make no mistake, we have a long way to go. This virus will be with us for a long time. There is no question that stay-at-home orders and other physical distancing measures have successfully suppressed transmission in many countries. But this virus remains extremely dangerous. Early evidence suggests most of the world's population remains susceptible. That means epidemics can easily reignite.
Reflecting upon the issues further, WHO Director General Dr. Ghebreyesus highlighted that among the countries that have reported data to WHO, only 66% of countries have a clinical referral system in place to care for COVID-19 patients, and only 48% have a community engagement plan. He added that no country has everything in place.
In addition to supporting countries, we also track progress globally among countries that have reported data to WHO. 78% have a preparedness and response plan in place. 76% have surveillance systems in place to detect cases. And 91% have lab testing capacity for COVID-19. But we still see many gaps around the world. Only 66% of countries have a clinical referral system in place to care for COVID-19 patients. Only 48% have a community engagement plan, and only 48% have an infection prevention and control program and standards for water, sanitation, and hygiene in health facilities. In other words, there are still many gaps in the world's defenses, and no single country has everything in place.
And that's all news for today. See you tomorrow with the state of business at the usual time. Until then, take care. Good night.